For today's class, we are going to talk about how the nervous system is divided and then begin our discussion on the brain. The nervous system can be anatomically divided into the major regions of the central nervous system, which is the brain and spinal cord, and the peripheral nervous system, which are the nerves outside of the brain and spinal cord. And that's why the peripheral nervous system is called peripheral, because it means beyond or outside of the brain and spinal cord. The peripheral nervous system can be subdivided into the somatic nervous system and the autonomic nervous system. For the autonomic nervous system, you want to think automatic. This conducts impulses from the brain and spinal cord to internal organs and glands. An example of this would be how food is pushed along the digestive tract. The digestive tract is going to receive signals from the autonomic nervous system to cause that food to be moved. The autonomic nervous system can be further divided into the sympathetic, which is called the fight or flight or the arousing division of the autonomic nervous system. And then you also have the parasympathetic division, which is called the calming division or rest and digest. Now, the other subdivision of the peripheral nervous system is the somatic nervous system. And this is what communicates with the sense organs and voluntary muscles. So you want to think communication to your skeletal muscles. The central nervous system is composed of the brain and the spinal cord. The brain is nervous tissue that is contained within the cranium, and the spinal cord is the extension of nervous tissue within the vertebral column. The brain and the spinal cord connect at a part of the brain called the brainstem. The brain, the adult human brain, weighs about 3 pounds and consists of 100 billion neurons. The brain can be divided into 5 divisions. Those divisions are the cerebrum, the Diencephalon, the Limbic System, the cerebellum, and the brainstem. The cerebrum is the largest part of the brain and occupies the whole upper part of the skull. The cerebrum itself weighs about 2 pounds. It's divided into a right and left hemisphere by a deep groove called the longitudinal fissure. And a fissure is just a term referring to deep grooves. Now, within these grooves, there are elevated folds, and these folds are called gyri. Gyri are also called convolutions in the brain. And the importance of the gyri is that they increase the surface area of the brain. The cerebrum is divided into 4 lobes, and these lobes are named based on the bones that cover them. You have the frontal lobe, the parietal lobe, the occipital lobe, and the temporal lobe. So let's look at the different functions of each lobe. The frontal lobe is responsible for emotions, personality, morality, intellect, speech, and smell. The parietal lobe receives and interprets nerve impulses from sensory receptors, and these impulses are going to result from stimuli that involve pain, touch, heat, and cold. The occipital lobe houses the visual area, which is important for controlling eyesight. And the temporal lobe is responsible for hearing and facial recognition. We're now going to move into another division of the brain, which is called the Diencephalon. The Diencephalon is located above the brainstem and between the left and right hemispheres of the cerebrum. The Diencephalon consists of two major structures, the thalamus and the hypothalamus. The thalamus relays sensory and motor signals, and it also regulates consciousness and alertness. The hypothalamus is considered the brain within the brain because it is responsible for cardiovascular control, for temperature control, appetite control, and sleep control. Another division of the brain is the limbic system, and the limbic system can be considered the emotional brain. It's located in the center of the brain, and it surrounds the brainstem. The limbic system consists of a complex set of structures that include the hippocampus and the amygdala. These structures are involved with things like motivation, emotion, mood, and memory. Another division of the brain is the cerebellum. The cerebellum is important because this is what controls all body functions that are related to skeletal muscles. When we think about skeletal muscles, that's how we move. It's going to include functions such as our balance, our muscle tone, and the coordination of muscle movement. And the cerebellum, it is located behind the pons and below the cerebrum. And like the cerebrum, the cerebellum is also comprised of two hemispheres. And then we have the division of the brain, which is called the brain stem. The brain stem is comprised of the midbrain, the pons, and the medulla oblongata. The brain stem controls the flow of messages between the brain and the body. It also is important for controlling body functions such as breathing, swallowing, heart rate, blood pressure, consciousness, and whether one is awake or sleepy. And that concludes our discussion today on the major divisions of the nervous system and the divisions of the brain.